So my advice to someone who's going through this incarceration or the same, situation right now is just starting a bid.
I hear you, dog.
Number one would be, there's a purpose for you in the midst of this bid, in the midst of the pain and the here and
nobody
the now.
can relate.
And don't forget that. And obviously we
stay
don't want
there.
to eat that. We don't want to face that reality because it hurts. It's sad. You don't want to wake up in this place. You don't want to go through this.
It's for my dogs up in the system who ain't coming home, who doing years behind the fence, the sentence way too long. All your family and your loved ones kept it moving on. You by yourself, you're on your own, just remain strong. Yeah, just remain strong. Just remain strong. Feeling all alone, just go ahead and play the song. No, you're not alone, I'm praying till you make it home. So much pain can make you numb, feel no feelings, whole environment is violent, cold-blooded killings. I'm backing up, I'm noticing I gotta put a whole bunch of pressure on the gas and it's not moving. The car's like, it's moving, but I'm like pushing it a lot. So I'm like, what the heck's going on? Hold on, let me get this left. Alright, so I'm like,
what's your whip or you still gotta pick up yours?
Nah, this me, bro.
That's lit.
Yeah, my mama blessed me, bro. She was waiting till I was coming home to get, cause she been needed a new vehicle. So when she got her new car, like a month before I came home, she giving me her old one. Hold on. So yeah, anyway, so I'm backing out, and the car is barely moving, and I realized that the parking brake's on. So
how long it took you to figure that out?
Until I seen the light. So it was like a good minute.
That's hilarious.
How come it's not? Left on 15.
Nah, but I'm excited, man.
Hey, so
I'm excited to see the new way you're gonna live. You know what I'm saying? Free.
Yeah,
because I heard you say you don't watch TV.
Oh yeah, nah, I ain't gonna get caught up in that, bro. One thing I learned in prison is to be disciplined and productive with my time. Because obviously, people think that you're in prison, you got all the time in the world, and you do.
But you do.
You do, but it depends what you're doing. You know what I mean? If you just laying down and sleeping all day, then yeah. But if you are trying to be productive with the time you got, I had a busy schedule even in prison. I ain't have enough time in the day. Hey, hold on, I gotta stop real quick. I gotta figure out how to work this Google Maps, man.
I got it.
See, look, it's not following me.
No. See?
Right,
no, you good. It had to adjust.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to freaking pay attention to these directions and watch the road.
I got you there.
You can turn on the
you ain't ready for the new style of life.
Listen, bro.
You don't even know.
I didn't even know how to get back to the apartment. You know what I mean? From my dad's spot.
Bro.
Pick up the car, bro. So I mean, I have to watch the freaking Google Maps thing, and I'm having a hard time watching the road and following the directions. Yeah, so what were you talking about earlier? Yeah, I want to talk about that as far as what the heck is this? About being productive in prison.
Yeah,
you got different types of people in prison. You got some people who are just gonna do dead time, and they're consumed. I think this is right.
Yeah.
They're consumed with however they live in. You got, say for instance, you got a dorm of 90 people. 90 people within that dorm all can live different lifestyles, even within the same circumstance.
Right.
All of us living, abiding by the same rules, being, freaking supervised by the same police. But everyone, obviously, even though you don't have no options when it comes to things of what to do, everyone's living different lifestyles. You got dudes who live for violence, and they gangbang. So they're caught up in the street. Not the street, but they're caught up in the prison drama all day, with their brothers and banging and selling dope. And so you got people who, live for violence. You got, old guy who got some drawing skills. So the majority of his time, all he's doing is freaking drawing cards. You know what I mean? And he hustling though. So he in the canteen line selling cards or doing whatever. And you got other people who try to better themselves through education, never graduate high school, get their GED, do whatever. But then you got other people as well who get caught up in religion and with the great motive and intention of trying to find a purpose in life, and people become Muslim, Hebrew Israelite, Christian, whatever. So ultimately, obviously, me finding my purpose in life, and that's knowing Christ So my prison sentence just wasn't a prison sentence. Obviously, I'm doing time, but it became a missionary journey. So every day I'm waking up and I'm seeking the Lord, asking God what He has for me. What's today's divine assignment? So every day I'm waking up, and after I spend time with the Lord in prayer and receive from the Lord in His Word, this daily chasing after Jesus, enjoying Him intimately. My next mission, all throughout the day is the relationships that God's blessed me with in the dorm and throughout the prison, to build with these boys, if they don't know Christ, to just, minister to them and just be people's friends, man. Love on them. Let the love of Christ live through me, ministering to others, discipling, the men of God. Yeah, so in that, and obviously all throughout my incarceration, writing music every day, preparing sermons, blessed with the opportunity to receive vision from the Lord and plant churches. This is ministry, full-time ministry in the chain gang, and I think that was a huge advantage for me when it comes to my preparation for release. Because of course, you got people out here doing full-time ministry, but for the most part, unless it's what I'm being experienced to labor with, the home church plant movement and the disciple-making movement, most ministries and churches, it's only for a moment. As far as Wednesday night service, Sunday service, and of course they can have relationships throughout the week, but they can kind of turn off, you know what I mean, and go throughout their everyday schedule. But in ministry, bro, in prison, which is full-time, you live in the dorm with these guys, so ministry never stops. And ultimately, you got everyone watching you at all times with a magnifying glass. And it's not like you're trying to please men, but you want to represent Christ properly and live above reproach and represent the gospel how it should be. With that responsibility and with that honor and privilege to oversee these churches and the ministry and to disciple guys and pour into them, my time was full, bro. Along with writing music, preparing sermons. I got a schedule every single day throughout every week because there's so many people I'm blessed to pour into and serve and build relationships with. I don't got enough time in the day to do this. So I mean, don't get me wrong, occasionally I watch TV. I try to watch the news every day, but mostly it ended up watching the news maybe 3-4 times a week, but the whole point I'm getting at is I'm looking forward to being able to grind out here too, and that's why I was talking about TV. I ain't got no time for TV, man. Ain't nothing wrong with TV and entertainment. And I had other mature men of God in prison always reminded me, yo, you grinding, you laboring for the King, but just remember, bro, enjoy, have you time. So I had to always make sure I had me time too, and normally that was through exercise. I'm an athlete, so that's my outlet, exercise. So, all right, so look, man, I'm finna go in here and see my CRD officer. Obviously, CRD is conditional release. They don't got parole in Florida no more, but they just changed the name. It's pretty much the same thing. In prison, you get sentenced to an amount of time, and if you max out, you lose all gang time. You do the full bid. But if you're doing good, praise be to God, I ain't getting no DRs the whole time. I got all my gang time, so you only have to do 85%. So on an 8-year and 11-month bid, pretty much 9 years, I was blessed to have to do the least of that, the 85%, which is 7 years and 8 months. But there's a loophole in the system to where if you're a previous offender, me being a violent offender, I met the criteria to be on CRD. So when I was released, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you got CRD, which sucks. It's like probation. And if you violate, man, you get sent back to prison. And you gotta do the rest of your gang time in prison. But I trust God that as I'm walking faithful unto Him, He got me with favor. So I'm my nerves are probably the worst right now than anything. Than yesterday. Obviously, it was dope. It was lit. I was nervous then too and anxious, but it was just the Spirit of God and His unction, His anointing taking over all yesterday. But today I feel even though I know the Spirit of God's with me, I feel more I'm here now, more present. And I'm nervous with the CRD officer and the regulations and all that. If they gonna let me leave the county and travel like I need to for music and ministry. So I'm finna get in here. I'm gonna tell you all about it when I come out. So, because I don't want to get too much footage with the camera outside. So, just came out of the CRD office, and obviously, yesterday was a huge day for me, being such a big day, my first day out of prison, And not just my first day being out, but the huge event, the block party, you know, going to crossover church for the first time in all these years. Yo, I'm pulling out to the highway for the first time. This is crazy. That dude just passed me. I got to merge. Terrified. So, yeah, so yesterday being a huge day, of course, man, I was anxious, I was nervous, I was fearful. But man, the Spirit of God took over yesterday. Yesterday was a huge day. I was worried about, you know, not really worried about, I was just anxious and nervous about this, everything going good. I don't want to forget my lyrics. I pray that the message would be effective, that souls would be impacted, that Christ would be represented, the gospel would be represented properly, and that the Lord would use me vitally. So my first day out, and ultimately to me seeing my kids. I ain't seen them in the past, you know, 2 years. So I was excited to see them, and I knew the distance, you know, on their end, just through phone calls. And I know they were excited about me coming home, but obviously, as y'all seen yesterday, how emotional my daughter was and how hurt she was, and you know, the lack of intimacy and their receptivity. So that was all on my mind and my heart before I was released. But man, yesterday the Spirit of God completely took over, man. I was empowered by, you know, just the Lord. And even though I was present and I was trying to, you know, enjoy everything and be there in the moment, it's like I was running on straight Holy Ghost fuel, man, and adrenaline, to where even though I was there and I was present, being mindful, it's like I wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like the whole day was just, I'm ripping and running, my mind's gone. And I really didn't feel, I wouldn't say I didn't feel too much emotion, because I was, but it was like, I don't know, I guess I was kind of like numb. Like, you know, whenever you get in the fight, like you don't feel no pain whatsoever in the moment because it's pure adrenaline. Then you wake up the next day and you feel like the knots and the aches from the fight. So that's kind of how I was yesterday. Like in the midst of everything, you know, I was rejoicing, but I really didn't feel much, I guess, or was aware of it. The only time I actually was emotional and was aware of what I was feeling is when my daughter started crying. And obviously that was, that was rough. So I would have figured that yesterday would have been the day in which I felt the most nerves and anxiety. But in all actuality, man, I felt the most anxiety and fear, and like my nerves were the worst this morning. And even now, I mean, I'm good now, but going to the CRD office, which is like parole for the state of Florida, we don't got parole no more. So whenever you're released from prison, in Florida they got, you know, when you get sentenced to an amount of time, the least amount of time that you have to do is 85%. So say I was sentenced to 8 years and 11 months. The 85% of that is 7 years and 8 months. So in prison, whenever you know, don't get written up, no DRs, you get gang time. You get 10 days a month. So all that adds up to me only having to do 7 years and 8 months. So what CRD is, if you qualify for it, if you meet the criteria, which I did because I'm a violent offender, and it's my third time in prison, they know they put me on CRD, which is like probation. And you hear all these horror stories in prison, man. People getting out. And it sucks because like it's kind of like double jeopardy. And I think that's a huge issue with the system. It's pretty much like set up for failure, you know, because these guys are doing their time. I mean, like I did my time, bro. You know, I was sentenced to this amount of time, and because of my good behavior of not getting written up, I was released at my 85%. But if you in prison while and getting these DRs and, you know, getting written up, you got to max out. You got to do your entire bid day for day. But that wasn't the case for me. You know what I mean? Praise be to God. I get out on my 85% day. So because of my good behavior, and I wasn't sentenced to probation, I should get out, you know, scot-free. But the state of Florida and Tallahassee, like the loophole is not. They put you on CRD. It's like parole. So you got to do like your entire sentence pretty much. But the gang time that you got, which for me is like a year and 5 months, I got to do that on CRD, you know, that probation. So I got a curfew at 10 o'clock. Well, before I even get into my regulations and my rules, in prison you hear all these horror stories about guys getting out of prison. No matter how much time that is, some do 2 or 10 or 20, and they got all this gang time they got to do left on CRD. And, you know, some of them, I'm sure, probably get out and go back to the streets and do it wrong, and it causes them to violate. But you hear other stories, these horror stories, and that's the ones that go around, are these dudes who get out and they're doing good. And they just, you know, got caught up in traffic on their way back home from work, and you know, they didn't make their 10 o'clock curfew, and it just so happens that day their CRD officer pulled up on them to check to see if they were there at 10, and because they weren't there, they violated CRD and they got sent back to prison. You know, just for that one petty violation, they had to do another year in prison. So for me, like, even though I trust God, I know He's got me, and as I walk faithful unto Him, I know His favor is gonna rest on me. You know, it's still a very, you know, real situation that can happen. It seems like realistic because you hear all these stories about it. So I've been praying that God bless me with favor, and ultimately as I walk faithful unto the Lord bless me and protect me, that would never happen. So before they've been telling me I've been on CRD for the longest. Since I've been in prison, I meet the criteria. So I've been praying and asking God to bless me miraculously with favor to where I get to the CRD office when I get out, and I won't even have CRD. That happened to my dog. He got out of work release. He was assigned to CRD, but whenever he went to the office, they said, "No, you good, you don't got it." So I was praying and asking God to bless me miraculously to where that would happen. But if it not be His will, that I would have the best CRD officer in the building. And they have these, you know, regulations. Most people have got curfew at 10. You can't leave the county. You got to get permission to leave the county. You can't leave the state. And obviously, bro, the vision God's given me when it comes to music and church planning, that I know God's going to fulfill. Like, yo, I have to do all of those things. I want to do all those things. I want to go to Houston and go to New York and go to LA. I trust and I believe God's going to bless me with favor to where labels are going to be contacting me. I want to fly out to New York and have a sit-down meeting with the label and go on tour. And that's going to be soon. I'm going to go be performing in churches and be preaching in different hoods and church planning and all these things. I got to merge again. Right. So you got to get permission to leave the county and all these things. So I'm thinking that, yo, this can all be a hindrance to me for the vision God's given me. But I mean, I'm just trusting God for favor. So I talked to my dog, who I was literally at work release with a month ago. He got out. He's on CRD. So when he called me, you know, we just catching up. I'm encouraging him. He was a part of our ministry while I work with these. I was just trying to pour into him and disciple him and encourage him. He let me know. He's like, yo, bro, CRD sucks. And he's like, yeah, he's a pessimist. So I knew to take what he was saying, like, with a grain of salt. And, you know, I got big faith in a big God, man. God got me. I trust that He's going to protect me. He's going to bless me with favor regardless of his situation. So he told me, like, yo, his first day out when he went to go register as a felon to go see his CRD officer, he wanted to leave the county to go see his daughter. And he said that he got the worst CRD officer in the building. And she told him, no, like, what you mean? You want me to send you back to prison your first day? He said, what do you mean, man? I'm just trying to see my daughter. My daughter did 20-some years in prison, man. And he wants to go see his daughter. And she told him no. She told him no, bro. And, you know, he was approved later on, I think, in the week before that first day. I think maybe even the first couple of days, she told him no. So hearing stories like that, and I know that's not a war story. That's not a horror story. That's real. My dog told me that. So hearing that makes me pray even harder, asking God for favor. So today, when I went to the CRD office, you know, I wasn't able to be blessed miraculously to go in there and be like, oh yeah, Stephen Testa, yeah, you don't got CRD, man, you good. that's not what happened. Even though I was praying for that, my prayer apart from that was, as I was saying, that God blessed me with the best CRD officer in there. And I don't know all the officers, I didn't meet none of them but one. But man, listen, the guy who I'm assigned to, the most respectful dude in there, heard me out with everything. As in prison, we say, man, sweet, man, dude, sweet. So man, just praise God for His favor, because yo, I went in there and I let him know off the dribble. Like, I wasn't trying, like, yo, this is what you need to expect. Nah, I'm coming in there proper, you know, letting him know it's good to meet him, being all polite, and just trying to, you know, present myself accordingly. I let him know. I shared with him briefly my testimony. You know, obviously my charges are, you know, violent and jacked up. I was like, yo, like, that's just me as a hurt kid, you know what I mean, who was broken, had a bad past, but God redeemed me from that. And I shared with him briefly throughout this bid, you know, God transformed my life, and He blessed me with the opportunity to be not only drawn closer to a relationship with Christ, but He used me. I found my purpose. He used me to preach and teach, to plant churches in prison. And I explained to him my relationship with Pastor Tommy, with Leewood, Crossover Church, One Body. I explained to him briefly how I was blessed to be able to preach yesterday at the block party. And we had the event. I told him that I'm living with this ministry in the hood. Explained to him the entirety of that situation. I told him about, you know, the crossover, you know, me being able to share my testimony, form. So the reason why I told him all that is not only so he could just, get a picture of who I am. I let him know what to expect from me, that, yo, you're not gonna have no problems from me. But I also let him know, like, yo, listen, I told him first and foremost, my kids live in Sarasota County. I obviously live in Hillsborough County, and I work in Pinellas County. So I'm first asking, I explained to him, yo, I know that, like, you're not supposed to leave the county without permission. So I'm asking, like, yo, please, if I can get this verbal permission from you for today and for this entire week to be able to go back and forth to Sarasota County to see my kids. I explained to him how I seen my daughter yesterday and how emotional she was, and how I just, want to spend time with her and my son all throughout the week. So immediately he's like, yeah, no problem, man. I completely understand. And not only with that, how I have permission to see my kids whenever I want, man. Whenever I want. And I obviously had to be wise. I had to do my part. But that's one thing about, God. Obviously, God blesses us with favor. Most definitely. But we still have to do our part when it comes to wisdom and preparing for situations. So for this situation with the CRD office, I already had letters written and notarized from my kid's grandmother explaining that she needs me and she wants me obviously to be a part of my children's life and help her co-parent, and I need to be in that county all the time, take them back and forth to football, cheerleading, school, doctor's appointments. So she did that. My mother wrote a letter saying the same thing. My job wrote a letter saying they need me traveling to that county for work. So he said, yo, listen, when it comes to work, green light. You don't even gotta ask permission, bro. You know what I mean? You get my verbal permission right now. And to where I'm supposed to be. I can't leave the house before 6 a.m. because I work at 6. I'm able to leave the house earlier. So favorite guy, able to leave back and forth to work, no pressure, no problem. And the same thing with my kids, man. I can go back and forth and see my kids whenever I want to. All I gotta do is just notify him in advance. I just can't stay the night down there. I gotta be back at my apartment before 10 at night. And then beyond that, that's the most important, obviously, my kids. But beyond that, when it comes to division with church planning and music and everything, he's like, yo, you can leave the county all throughout the state, go wherever you want, bro. You just have to notify me in advance, and I'll give you verbal permission, obviously, as long as I make it back to my apartment at night. If I stay the night anywhere outside of the county, and then also too, I mentioned, so first of all, man, I got the green light to do anything for ministry, bro, to travel all throughout the state. Praise be to God. That's huge, man. You don't hear about that from people in the prison who are on CRD. You normally hear it's harder. Like my dog was saying, he couldn't even go leave to see his daughter that first day. But even as I asked him, yo, what about like whenever I'm touring and when I go to, out of state, to go preach at another church, or to perform. And he said, what I can do is I can have, Pastor Tommy or Lee Wood and the guys in the ministry that I'm involved with is writing letters. And what he's going to do is he's going to take these letters and he's going to bring them before the commission board. And with each event, in advance, I got to give it to him and he'll bring it to the commission board and ask for approval. So, man, obviously that hasn't happened yet, but I'm trusting in God for his favor that, man, God's going to approve all that for me for those events when I want to go out of state, or obviously not just for luxury, but to do the will and work of God, to watch him fulfill the vision and the call that he placed upon my life. So, I'm expecting in faith and radical faith in a big God that, as he already blessed me, man, the dude is so cool, man. Like when it comes to like parole officers and probation officers, man, the dude was extremely understanding. He was respectful. He heard me out with everything. I got to take, anger management course and a drug treatment class, which is crazy because I already did that in prison. Whenever you do that in prison, they tell you that it's, certified and it's going to count towards, my court stipulations. So I don't know. Hopefully I got to contact Tallahassee and see if I can get records of that and show them. So hopefully I'll be able to skate and not do that. But even with that, he's like, yo, we'll worry about that next month. So, man, that's just the favor of God blessing me, with what I'm assuming, and I'm sure it's probably the sweetest dude in there, man, giving me the approval already for everything. Because today, obviously my second day out and we filming, I want to go back home. I want to see my city. I want to see where I'm from. I've been down for 7 years. and I want to see how everything changed. I want to go see the house I grew up in and pull up on some of my dogs, and just my kids are in school, but I just want to go down there, and I had to be prepared to audible. Like, yo, like the chances are that my CRD officer could say no, like you can't leave the county for however long, or it's got to be brought to the commission for it. But no, you know, it said because I'm going down there to see my kids, you know, all throughout this week, yo, I got permission verbally. So it's just so much easier than what, sadly, I don't want to make it seem like I'm lacking, I got some weak faith, but, you know, to be honest, I was kind of like, I was ready. I wasn't like expecting, but I was just ready for some challenges and some opposition. So I praise God that that's not what happened. Like God just like opened up the door. And obviously, as you guys can see already, man, like, yo, who gets out of prison in the situation that I'm walking into? Like, entirely. Like, that's the hand of God, man. And a lot of people aren't blessed with the support system that I got. I mean, the reality is, a lot of people, man, I'm driving a car right now, my second day out of prison. I'm blessed, you know what I mean? Like, my mom being able to give me this vehicle. Like, that's huge. You know what I mean? I'm driving a freaking car my second day out of prison. I got an apartment that's fully furnished. And not only is it fully furnished, but I mean, like, the furniture and all that stuff is dope. I ain't never had no furniture like that, man. And it's, even though it's not my spot and I'm staying with the ministry, it's an honor to be able to get out of prison. That's the calling that God gave me, bro. You know, to plant churches in the hood and to reach the streets and to proclaim the gospel and to make disciples in the streets and to boldly be unashamed with the gospel in those hostile environments, to reach dope boys and people out there on the block, people who gangbang. And this is how God used me in prison to walk out into society and to be used by the Lord the same way. And I know, and I had faith that God was going to fulfill that and do it, but I had no idea, and I wasn't expecting that God was going to fulfill that before I even came home. And I'm walking into that apartment and all these things, and just with the CRD officer being super sweet and doing everything. So that's love, man. So right now we at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, so I got to register as a convicted felon, and I probably got to go in there. And this hopefully will be the last time I ever have to strip in my life, because I'm sure they're probably going to have to strip me and take pictures of all my tattoos and all that, make sure I'm not gang affiliated. Hope they don't misunderstand or misinterpret any of my tattoos for any gang affiliation. But I'll let them know, just as in prison, when you get transferred from prison to prison, like during your intake at a new prison, you always got a STG sergeant, and that's like a special terrorist group or special threat group, whatever. It's like the gang sarge. So whenever you got new inmates coming in, they check everybody. Hello? Scam. They check everybody's tattoos and then see if you're gang affiliated, because they want to watch you on the pound and all that. So I used to always take the advantage and the opportunity to witness to the administration, also too to know what to expect from me when I hit the pound, because I got some tattoos like 5-point stars, like the 5-star general, you know, for the kingdom, like on my shoulder and all that. And they asked me if I'm affiliated, and they normally assume that I am, just because, you know, I'm tatted up, got bows in my mouth, you know, got some swag, and they're like, are you affiliated? I'm like, most definitely, man, I bang for them. Well, I normally don't say that when they say that. I tell them off the dribble, I said, listen, I said, man, I bang for Christ, man. I bang for the Most High God, man. I bang for Jesus. I said, that's what I'm banging for. And I just let them know, like, yo, I encourage and I take the initiative to pursue guys who are affiliated, you know, that they understand and recognize that, yo, the home that they need to come home to, be affiliated with, is with Christ. So that's dope. So if they ask me now about my tattoos and assume that I'm gang affiliated, I'm gonna let them know the same thing, man. Most definitely I bang, man, for the Most High God, Christ Jesus.
I got to see their reaction to that.
So I'm about to go in here right now and register, and then it's on to the city, man. Going back down to Sarasota for some interviews. We got a late studio session tonight, so that's Alright, so the felony registering definitely sweet. Wasn't like I thought it was gonna be. All I had to do, worst thing about it, I just had to wait, and that was it. So I'm thinking they gonna bring me in there and strip me and take pictures on my tattoos and all that. But that's not what happened at all. They didn't even care. So yeah, they didn't care at all about my tattoos. They had a paper they had to fill out with all my tattoos. So on the paper it said, you know, tattoo and scar explanation. And obviously I'm entirely wet. The only thing I'm not tattooed is that my upper thighs.
Right.
So all I did was, rather than writing down every single tattoo, which would have literally taken like hours.
Probably an hour.
Yeah, I just sat there and I wrote stomach, chest, big cross, religious, and I just, you know, summarized everything. So yeah, they didn't strip me, nothing. All I had to do was sit in the lobby a couple minutes, and then they called me back. In the back, they took my fingerprints. They gave me a piece of paper that I got to give to my CRD officer, and then, you know, that was it. But I mean, even for like a second, just because all my charges are just like battery against the Leo, aggravated assault against the Leo, aggravated battery against the Leo. You know, obviously, police, I'm sure when I see that, they're not too fond of me. So just like a little bit of, not like I'm scary behind the police, you know, but I'm thinking that, okay, I may like get some static when I walk back there. They're gonna be mugging me and sizing me, but yeah, it wasn't no pressure at all. They just trying to do their job and get me out of there. So, you know, praise God for that. Yeah. So I guess something funny that just made me think of it. I was expecting to get stripped, right? So they could take pictures of my tattoos. And just saying that and thinking that, and that didn't happen, you know what that is? That's a freaking result of being institutionalized. Because that's what happens in prison. You know, if you are reported to the STG, the gang sergeant, to be affiliated, you know, the first thing they do is they call you up to the office and they, you know, have you stripped and they take pictures of all your tattoos, and then they send it to whoever to see if you're affiliated or if there's any reason to believe that you are affiliated. And obviously I've never gang banged, but you know, there's been a time in prison because of my tattoos. Anyway, so long story short, that's like the norm. Hold on. Hello? My CRD officer? Yeah, I met with them. Everything was perfect. He gave me permission to go back and forth to go back and forth to work and to go back and forth to see the kids with his verbal permission. So yeah, everything worked out perfect.
Damn.
Hey, but I'm driving right now and I'm trying to pay attention to the directions and I'm filming. So I'm gonna call you later, all right? Love you. Thank you for checking in on me, Mom. So
We're basically talking about like that's a result, yeah.
Being institutionalized. So I'm going into the freaking sheriff's office thinking that they're gonna strip me and take pictures of my tattoos, which they didn't do that at all. They didn't even care. Like, that's not like at all on their mind. And it's funny because when I was at work release, you can only go back and forth to work. The whole purpose of work release is to transition back into society and save money. But so being at work release, even though that was a blessing from God to save money, man, I racked up at work release. And I'm making $18 an hour at my job, and I'm working 56 hours a week. So that overtime's racking up. So praise God for that. But they take 55% of your check unless you make more than $343 a week. No, excuse me, unless you're making more than $600 a week. So because I'm making more than $600 a week, I'm making almost $900 a band every week. Sometimes it is over a band, but I get the highest health insurance because I'm about to get hernia surgery. But still, the most they can take is $343. But the whole reason why I mention that is that work release, you can only, you know, go back and forth to work. The whole purpose is for you to save money, not just for yourself, but the state wants to cut, obviously. This is how they get money. One of the ways how they get money. So at work release, you can only go back and forth to work. You can get furloughs, but because of COVID, they stopped doing furloughs. You really couldn't go home and have home passes anymore for 6 or 8 hours. So I never went on one. I was just always going back and forth to work. I never went on a furlough, nothing like that. But you got to get permission to go get your driver's license. So I had my license been suspended for I think 5 years. But the entire time that it was suspended, I was in prison. So praise be to God, I was able to come out my first day, second day driving. So I got my driver's license. I had to retake the test while at work release. But it's funny because when I went to the DMV, and the whole reason why I'm bringing this up is being institutionalized. When I went to the DMV, there was a little like whack and hunt security guard in front of the DMV, but I thought that was like a state trooper. Like I was just, adrenaline was going. Even at work release, you still have the freedom of being in society and riding the bus, and all that's freaking crazy at first. The adrenaline, not used to, regular people and being free. But when you do that day in and day out for every day, 6 days a week for months, that becomes your new routine and you get used to it. But whenever you like deviate apart from your route, you don't take the same bus every day and you're going to a new destination, you're going to the DMV, it's like that adrenaline, the nervousness and the anxiety all, plays out again because it's new. It's something that I haven't experienced before. So when I went to the DMV, obviously I'm lit, I'm excited, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, I feel socially awkward. I don't know how to use the little thing, the touch screen thing that I got assigned for. Obviously that stuff like that was out when I was out, but it was different. It's like more high tech now. So it's funny, like I'm wondering if the lady behind the counter is noticing me, like how long I'm taking, and I wonder if she knows that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just now like figuring it out. Well, anyways, whenever I walk up and the state, who I think is a state trooper, is just a whack hunt security guy, for some reason, because of COVID, they're making sure everybody's got an appointment. But for some reason, in my mind, I'm thinking that he's patting people down before you're going into the DMV building. Just because, once again, being institutionalized, you're always getting searched by the police. And, like, you have to submit to that. You can't be like, nah, bro, like, you ain't gonna touch me. But you can do that in society. Obviously, like, no one's gonna let any security guard or whacking her security guard at that search down. But in my mind, I really didn't think that I was a whack hunt security guard at first. I thought I was a real police, and I thought he was gonna ask to search me. And in my mind, I was already like ready to like turn around and let him pat me down. And then it's funny because I didn't like consciously like register all that and just evaluate that thought process until after I walked in. And I remember while I was sitting down in the lobby waiting, I'm like, dang, that's crazy. And especially being at work, at least there's a lot of things that I noticed, because being in prison all these years, even though you don't adapt to the environment when it comes to character, because some people roll like prison can do one or two things to a person. It can make you like turn you all the more into a savage, or it can make you freaking lose. It can do a lot of things. It can make you turn into even a worse person, make a savage, even greater savage, or it can make people lose their mind, their mental and emotional health. Or it can be a great growth, moment for them based upon how you respond to the pain. But even if you do come out better, if you respond properly, and like for me, like price flip on my life while I'm incarcerated, there's still negative effects or just natural effects that subconsciously you're unaware of because of the institutionalization, being incarcerated for so long. So for me, going to work release, I'm a very reflective dude. Even though, I'm pretty outgoing, I'm like an extroverted introvert. I also like to be to myself a lot. Even when growing up, I always was like, very social, had a lot of dogs, a lot of friends. I was cool with everybody. Everybody always liked me. But anytime you see me, I'm by myself. That's how I was in the street too. When I'm out there getting money, of course, I had my dogs who was hustling, and I was cool with everybody, but still, like, anytime you see me, for the most part, I'm by myself. Sometimes I have, like, some of my day ones, my aces with me, but I've always been like that. I'm just more comfortable with just being with me. But saying that is, I think a lot, and especially whenever I got saved, and I became, a man, truly a man, and matured in life, rather than acting like, a grown little boy, hot-headed shit. I truly like reflect on like my actions or my emotions. Like if someone like tries me and I get pissed, or something happens and I see like my emotional response, like later on in the day, I've been journaling for the past 12 years in prison. So every day at the end of each day, I write down, not really like venting, but I would just document what God's doing in my life, what he's ministering to me while I'm reading the word. I write down notes, but not just apart from the notes, but as well as like how God's using me that day, how God's using other people in my life, situations, that would take place. So during that time when I journal, I reflect. And obviously in prayer too, when I bring things before the Lord, I reflect a lot. And I also started asking the question, why? And I think that's one of the best questions that, you know, we can ask ourselves is, man, like, yo, why do I do what I do? Because, like, that's when you truly begin to, like, discover who you are even more. Because I think that's just the progress of maturity, man, in life. You know, every day you discover who you are, you know, more, and who you're becoming, and who God's making you to be, the better version of you, who He intended you to be. So I say that to say, when I get to work release, I'm being very reflective of my mental and my emotional response of freedom. And I remember when I first got to work release, man, bro, I was shell shocked. You would have think like I just went into prison, like whenever I got to work release. And like work release is sweet, bro. It's not like you're not behind a fence. You guys seen the footage, you know, it's like it's a building, pretty much like an old hotel that they renovate and turn into like a facility where they got, you know, correctional officers there. But it's sweet. You got 3-man rooms. In my facility I was at, you share a bathroom with 6 people in the 2 rooms, or, you know, share a bathroom. It's friendly. Obviously, there's no violence. Nobody's robbing each other. There's no, like, you know, gang wars, or, you know, it's crazy stuff that you see in prison. You know, like these old, you know, booty bandits running down on, you know, the weak, or seeing it's like the crazy stuff that you see in their everyday prison life. There's no drama, static. Of course, you know, it's life. You got some issues, and some, maybe some criminal convict stuff. Of course, there's dope, and there's even more dope, most definitely at work release. Everybody who's in that lane doing their thing, trying to get that bag, or the addicts using whatever. But it's a sweet environment. You know, it's like when you get to work release, that's the pinnacle of incarceration, bro. Everybody's praying for work release when they catch that at the end of the sentence they go to work release. So praise be to God, I made it. So obviously it was a huge burden off my shoulders. Like, yes, like, boy, I'm free. You know, even though I'm not out yet, you know, I'm back in society. I'm catching the bus to work. You know, I'm saving money.
No, the highway.
So it's beautiful. But I mean, like, when I first got there, bro, I was just spooked. And I kept asking myself, like, why do I feel like this? You know what I mean? It'd be understandable if, like, you're in a hostile environment. That's how it is when you go to prison the first time, bro. Like, anybody who says, like, they weren't scared going to prison for the first time, man, that's cap. Maybe if you're, like, a grown man or whatever, but I was, like, an 18-year-old kid. So, of course, like, or anybody, most people, man, you naturally feel fear. It doesn't make you pussy. It just means that you're a freaking man with emotions, and you're honest enough with yourself that you can identify, like, maybe the fear, the uncertainty of what to expect. So there's no reason for me to be in fear at work release. You know what I mean? It's not like a hostile environment, but I'm terrified, bro. Terrified, spooked, socially awkward. I feel so uncomfortable. I felt so out of my element. You know, and it's like I'm asking myself, like, why do I feel more comfortable, like, in a dorm with guys who are murderers, and where guys are getting robbed or extorted, or, you know, there's all this, you know, gang drama, or this the prison life, or whatever it is that's going on in prison, and like, I'm used to that. So now I'm like in a sweet environment. Why do I feel this way now? And ultimately I knew it's just because, like, this is a new chapter of my life. Even though I wasn't out yet, like, yo, it was like the next step to release. So all that anxiety and fear about my soon release was just like weighing in on me emotionally. So that was a big transition for me at work release, man. And I thank God for that period at work release, because, man, some people, man, like I said earlier, bro, I'm blessed. Look how God's blessing me. I got a vehicle. I already got a great job because of work release. They started me at 15, but because of working under Christ, the Lord honoring me, I've been getting job promotions and pay raises. I'm getting paid $18 an hour now. You see the apartment God blessed me with, fully furnished, the ministry, the black party, all that. That's all the hand of God. But sadly, bro, the majority of people coming out of prison don't have that, man. I got a great support system. My dog, she's been there for me day one. You know, she's not immersed in poverty. You know, she can help me out. My pops, you know, he's well off. He's been overseas for everything. So even though me and him don't have the greatest relationship, he's there for me if need be when it comes to the finances, and just to support me as he has been throughout my biz. So, you know, I'm blessed to come home to a support system. But the sad thing about incarceration, bro, and rehabilitation is that's not everybody's experience. The majority of guys get out of the chain gang, bro, they're going home and they don't got nothing. You know, they're going to homeless shelters and programs and halfway houses. Not to justify the wrongdoing, but it's pretty understandable why, like, they get out and they don't want to stay in the homeless shelter. They don't want to go to the program, and they can easily get wrapped back up in a life of crime. But not to get off topic, just that whole work, at least for me, was a huge blessing, and especially to prepare me mentally and emotionally for release. Just when it comes to the experience of being around free world people, and just to get out of the incarcerated mind frame. And I think for me, one of the biggest challenges, and I tell people this all the time, obviously, I'm living for Christ, and I'm a humble dude, but I haven't always been a humble dude. I've always been extremely proud and arrogant, and as I always share my testimony, man, I was a hot-headed kid, and it was mainly driven just because of insecurity. You know what I mean? I grew up, I was always the shortest kid in every grade. I was always the shortest kid on the football team. I hit puberty late. My father wasn't present in my life, so I subconsciously felt rejected and abandoned and less than. So I was angry, I was hurt, I was broken. But it manifested in me with rage and with anger. And I felt like I had a point to prove to everybody. I was seeking my fulfillment and validation in life from other people's affirmation and how they viewed me. So I felt like I had to prove my point to everybody. And it led me to be, always ready to fight. I fought all the time as a kid. And, that was always a big downfall in my life. But saying that, I naturally have an anger problem, and even still to this day. And one thing that prison's done to me over the years is, in prison, man, even though you see a lot of people, or just for some reason the culture's fascinated with incarceration and prison, and you see all these different paradigms of how it is to be locked up. And I think what it is, a lot of times guys getting out of prison like to say yo man, it's savage, people getting stabbed every day, people getting raped, police getting stabbed, it's crazy, it's crazy environment and experience. It is, and it can be in a lot of places and a lot of times, and I don't know how it is in the States. I can't speak for other states, but it's not like that all the time, everywhere. But once again, man, it depends where you at. Especially in Florida, man. If you got low custody prisons, people can make it to work camps. And normally at work camps, it's not as savage, but it can be. But I only been to a work camp at one time for 3 months, and that's right before I came to work. So I've always in main, high security prisons, whatever. So I've seen a lot of stuff. Anyways, the whole point I'm getting at is in prison, bro, you gotta conduct yourself as a man. You don't gotta go in there with a chip on your shoulder and act like you the most gangstified person in the world, because they gonna test that. And they gonna see if you about that. Then you're just gonna get yourself into more conflict. And especially like myself, not living that lifestyle, following Christ. I'm not trying to go to search for conflict in anything. But at the same time, though, I understand my atmosphere and the environment that I'm in, especially growing up in prison. You just learn the laws of the land and how to operate and how to maneuver. So, in prison, the law of the land was respect. And because respect is the ultimate law, everybody, for the most part, is extremely respectful. I mean, that's true and it's not, because at the same time, it's not respectful to run down on a dude and rob him with dimes. So, people aren't polite in that manner. But,
maybe they do it nice.
Yeah. When you conduct yourself as a man, when people bump into you, excuse me, bro, or they're walking behind you, let you know that they're walking behind you, they let it be known. People are respectful, because if not, if that law of respect is broken, and if you feel like you're infringed upon your personal space, or you're tried by any means, people check that, and there's consequences behind it. So people don't go around doing disrespectful things, because the consequences is you could get your skull bashed open, or wet up, or this could lead into a gang war if you're affiliated. So, respect in prison is extremely high. And even in prison, I identify that I love to be in gangland. Different prisons are known for different atmospheres. So from my personal experience, I began to much rather be in gangland than being at sweeter institutions. And the reason why is, number one, the Lord was using me more in gangland. The Lord was using me more in a hostile environment. I saw that the fruit of the ministry would be more, God would move and work mightily in those places. So even though it wasn't always the best living situation, it always wasn't the most comfortable. Living in a dorm with all this drama going on, and the ER being locked down all the time, and all the searches because of conflict. but being used by the Lord in those places and watching what God was doing in people's lives was worth it. And plus, too, the respect level is high because there's so much violence going on. But whenever you go to these sweeter spots, like the last place I was at, I got transferred to getting closer to home because I graduated the college program. And I was avoiding work release. It was known for being a real sweet spot, and it was. But then, like, my first day there, I was blown. Like, 2 or 3 people bumped into me and didn't even say nothing. And I'm not like some freaking gangster. I'm not on that tour. I'm like, hey, yo, I'm not checking nobody. But I'm just like, dang, like, that's how people rocking here. You know what I mean? And just because there wasn't much violence, of course, people still get stabbed occasionally and all that, but it wasn't like savage like other spots were. So I say all that to say, when I got to work release and I started going to work, the first thing that I realized about society, and which was hard for me to adjust to, was the disrespect. Real, that's the first thing I noticed. I said, man, people are rude out here, man. People are so disrespectful. And like a lot of times at work, I know, because in prison, like, you got to be assertive. And even as a Christian following Jesus, I want to overcome evil with good and respond to humility and love. But at the same time, you can't be passive, man, because if someone disrespects you and you allow it to happen, like, people are going to interpret that as you being pussy, you being soft, you're weak. And not only are they, whoever disrespects you is going to feel like, okay, they got away with it the first time, they might take it to the next level, or they feel like they can treat you that like that all the time, or that other people see it. So because of growing up in the prison system, I had to learn immediately. And especially about 18 years old, man, I was a YO my first bid at a jit camp, which is savage. It's a whole nother story. But I went to work, at least my first bid, but I deviated from work. I went to the beach and got caught and got sent back to prison. So when I got sent back to prison, they snatched my YO and sent me to adult prison. And when I got to the adult prison, it was the Hamilton, which is a savage gangland spot. And they was moving me to the T building, which is HO4, high security custody. And they was moving me in a dorm with a whole bunch of lifers. And I'm only 19 years old. And I'm a short, skinny white boy. And the police called me to the side and said, hey, yo, Jit, you got a life sentence? He said, nah, bro, I got 4 months left. And he's like, you know where you going, right? I'm like, yeah, I do. He goes, you all right? I said, what you mean? He said, man, all those dudes got life. I said, I don't care, bro. I just came from jit camp. I said, you know how jit camp is? I'm so happy to be in adult camp. This is like the land of Canaan. You know what I mean? Jit camp is savage. So I was just happy to be there. But I learned just from that brief experience there, you know what I mean, that even though jit camp was more savage when it comes to like the petty fights and the jumping and all that, like, yo, in adult prison, they like stab him and they kill him. It's just like a higher, more serious level of savageness. But I learned from that experience. I'm an 18-year-old young white boy, pretty boy. So you already see, like, you know, booty bandits, you know what I mean? And I ain't greener from the street, so I can see dude creepo looking crazy. So immediately I understand. And plus being from the street, I ain't never been no pussy or carried myself like a pussy. So, but I had to be over intentional about walking around with a unit on my face. You know what I mean? Like mugging, looking crazy. But ultimately too, just trusting that God was protecting me, and He was. And just God's favor from other mature men of God in my life. You know, just God shielding me from, you know, any crazy violence or situations like that. But I say all that to say throughout the years in prison, I had to learn to be assertive. And even in a manner that, you know, honors and glorifies Christ. If somebody came at me some type of way, or just in conversation, said something that I didn't like, or the tone that they spoke to me, you know what I mean? Just prayerfully in my mind, but also like instinctively making sure like it's done in that moment, like pulling the bro to the side. Hey bro, let me holler at you real quick. Hey bro, don't address me like that though. Like, you and me are cool, man, but like nobody speaks to me like that though. Don't address me like that. And this, for whatever it could be, in for the most part, you know, from man to man, you know, people respect that and they feel that because you ain't pussy. So in prison, you have to always like kind of address things and check things, especially with your personal living and your boundaries, you know. And you get like territorial, and you always got a unit on your face, and everyone's always kind of like bugging and making eye contact. So those are like instinctively and subconsciously like things that just become like your everyday way of life. So whenever I get to work place and I'm at work, like these guys, and I'm like in the construction trade, these guys are talking crazy. You know what I mean? Like these guys are saying like they're joking crazy, playing all these gay games. So I noticed myself like within my first week, like addressing and checking all these people I work with. Not like going like savage and like, hey, yo bro, like nah, not like that. Like, yo bro, listen man, like y'all don't joke like that though. Like don't play with me like that. They playing like these gay games. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm like addressing, you know, I'm like checking them like, yo, don't joke like that with me, bro, I don't play them games. Or the way that they're talking or whatever. It was a big culture shock for me just to see how rude people were in society, the way that they speak, just body language, hold the door open for somebody, don't say nothing, people don't hold the door open for you, and just petty, stupid stuff. I guess it's kind of hard to communicate to people who haven't been incarcerated. Maybe it's hard for them to relate and understand. People who've been incarcerated know exactly what I'm talking about.
Seems like communication in prison was very important.
Yeah. And just like kind of like the unspoken rule, it's like, you know, like, I don't know, how to respect people, being polite and courteous.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy because you wouldn't expect like maybe that in prison, but
no, I wouldn't.
You know what I mean?
No, that just threw me off because I'm thinking everyone is purposely disrespectful. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So yeah, just the culture shock of dealing with people outside of prison is huge. And then also too, like the social anxiety, man. I'm still kind of uncomfortable with, I would say with one-on-ones I'm always good. You know, I hear that from most people. People aren't like comfortable in groups of people. I think everybody's like that. But I think it's even intensified, obviously not just for me, but for people coming out of incarceration. Because you're used to being in prison for so long and you're in an environment that's, you know, hostile, and you're coming out here and everything's moving so fast, and it's culture shock, man. And it makes you feel crazy. And I was thinking about this, how I can communicate to you as the viewer into society who never been locked up, never been incarcerated, doesn't understand like the transition from being incarcerated for a long period of time and being released, of how it feels. And I think now is the easiest time to explain that, help you identify, like COVID. You know what I mean? Like you hear, it's funny because like in prison, like, you know, you hear guys joking and laughing about it, but it's real though. Like you don't have to be in prison to understand like the effects of being isolated. Everybody can be isolated in their own way mentally, but especially because of COVID, man. Physically, like the whole world was shut down. And in prison, like, yo, we experienced a crazy situation, which is another story. But the world being locked down and people like being confined to their homes, in a sense, they're like locked up in their room and in their house and can't go places. And now you hear about these people who've been confined to their rooms and their homes for all these months. And some people took it to the extreme or whatever state they're in. They couldn't leave their house. Like, probably leave his house in a year. That's crazy. I can't even imagine that. I would never abide by that rule. So it would be skating. You can infringe upon my freedom. Then I'm trying to lock down the nation now. I'm going to be outside every day. But you can hear about the PTSD, you know, or the effects of these people who've been stuck in their homes because of quarantine and COVID. And now they're having social anxiety about going back out in public. And I'm not clowning people who are feeling that. That's real. Anxiety, mental illness, all that's real. So I understand that for each individual. But how you feel in that moment, okay, you've been confined in a house because of COVID, the quarantine for 16 months, 18 months, a year, however long it was for you. Okay, now getting back out in society, and okay, you can't wait. You're longing to come home or to get out and go hang out with your friends and go places. But still kind of feeling weird and everything's new again. You're like relearning and re-experiencing all those things. Okay, now intensity, you can identify with that feeling. All right, now times that by 20. That's how I feel. You know what I mean? And not just me, but anybody coming out of prison, especially anybody who's done a amount of time. And once again, you know, I'm not claiming that.
Were you so socially awkward before you went to prison? Or did you not that you are now, but I'm saying, did you feel socially awkward before you went?
Maybe, yeah. I think maybe as I mature now and throughout prison, like that's one huge thing in prison that I learned. Obviously, talking about reflection earlier, that you can look, you ain't got nothing but time, even while being productive and being busy. So I can look back at my childhood and my adolescence and just growing up, and I can evaluate just myself and why I did things the way that I did, why I responded the way I responded. I can see my wounds, I can see all these things. So I could look back and be like, yeah, I was definitely, I would say insecure, and anxious and socially awkward, but not all the time. And I think anybody, for the most part, I think everybody can identify with that to a degree. I don't think it was like extreme, you know what I mean? Like coming up, I was always, I was a star athlete. I was the captain of the football team on the pop corner, captain of the defense, very athletic, even despite being the shortest person on every team, because I was so insecure with my size and the feelings of abandonment and rejection that drove me to prove myself to everybody. And it manifested itself in athleticism. I was always like quick to fight, especially quick to, I was a hard hitter. I was always quick to try to prove myself through sports and through fighting. And even like socially, I was always outgoing. I was always a class clown. So I got along with everybody. I was always popular. Everybody messed with me. So maybe for most people, they wouldn't think that, or maybe they wouldn't interpret that or project that of being like, oh, bro's like socially awkward. But I think like we were talking about earlier, how I was feeling internally about being released and being around people. Like maybe other people don't see it. I don't know if they see it or not, and I feel it. So yeah, coming up, bro, like I don't know, I've naturally always been a clean freak. And I remember when I used to be pissed when me and my sister, we used to always, obviously share like the PlayStation or the Nintendo, whatever it was. Like it was my business that each game would be aligned in order of which one was the gassiest. Like, so whoever game's on the top got to be Madden. So I used to get pissed when she would put the games back up and not be the order that I had it in. So naturally, I'm a clean freak. Naturally, I like structure. But because of the street lifestyle and always trapping and just riding around busting licks and chasing money and chasing women and just everything that I was involved in doing, I had no structure in my life. Maybe like when it comes to like reeing up and busting my plays and the order of plays that I had to bust based upon location. Ooh, look at that couch right there, bro. That's crazy.
No, that is crazy.
Dang,
and people
crazy.
dodging that all day.
That's insane. Man. Thank God we wasn't in that lane.
What?
I might have freaked out, bro. It's my first day driving. I would have never expected a couch on the house. Why you do this on this day? I guess I've been structured naturally, but not with my life. It's with stupid little small things. I always kept my clothes and everything fresh and organized. I wasn't them type of dudes, like my laundry always on point. Even the dishes, like in the apartment or in the sink, I just keep that stuff down. That's just who I am as a person, clean freak. But when it comes to time management, man, I learned that in prison. And I think that it just happened naturally because obviously in prison, all you got is time. But like I was saying, I wasn't doing that time. I was extremely productive and I was busy to the point to where I was so busy and productive that I felt like there wasn't enough hours in the day. I felt like an entrepreneur in prison, not really that I'm making money or nothing, but just the fact that I'm so busy that I don't have enough time in the day to do what needs to be done. So I would say for years, naturally, I would say my first two business different, bro. My first 2.5 years, I was still young, 18 to 20. I really didn't understand my purpose in life. I didn't understand the call of God on my life, even though I was saved, I was young in Christ. That was more so of just God using other mature brothers in Christ to pour into me and to disciple me. So really the only structure then I had in prison was just my workout routines, working out 5 days a week, and also as well, like going to chapel and Bible studies and all those things. But like, even though God was using me naturally, and like it wasn't like formal ministry, the first bid, and even I think the second bid is whenever I began to be used by the Lord formally in like Bible study settings, in county jail. The Lord started using me to lead Bible studies. And that just happened organically, as the Lord would lead me naturally in conversations to share what the Lord was doing in my life. somebody asked me, like, hey, yo, like, this is Bible study. Can I pull up in a room? And then not only would he come, his homeboy would come, and then like half the pods in my cell, and the Lord's leading me to use Bible study. And as God placed the desire in my heart to like preach, you know, it started to take place in my life, and I started to walk in it. So throughout the years, as you know, I began to get involved in ministry, my responsibilities became more greater. And especially this bid, like the first 2 bids, bro, like you coasting. Because they were short bids, bro, 2.5 and 2. Like whenever people go to prison with short time, bro, they just try to get in and get out. They don't want to be friendly. They don't want to talk to nobody. They just want to make it home. So they stay to themselves for the most part. Unless you got some like hot-headed dude who just, even with a year and a day, he going in there, he ready to stab somebody first quarter, and the next week, and I seen the dude almost stab somebody the day he was going home, bro. For real, like, and he was the one instigating the conflict, and the whole dorm was like, bro, you tripping, man, you going home. Like, no, it wasn't the day he was going home, it was the night before. But then maybe that was probably just like a subconscious self-destructive mechanism in his mind, because he was scared to go home. He maybe didn't want to go home. So for the most part, people with short time like myself, the first and second bid, I really wasn't trying to get comfortable. I'm just trying to make it home to my kids. But this bit is different, bro. I felt with a chunk. But I mean, it's not a chunk to people, my dogs who got life and 45, 25 years, but still I fell with a 9-piece. That's a lot of time, man. I gotta get comfortable. So like whenever you fall with a different amount of time, you realize that you have to approach this animal different. So I understood off the dribble, like, and maybe not even consciously thinking it, but just subconsciously in my mind, like I already knew, like, yo, like, like you gotta get comfortable, man. You know, you gotta build a schedule. You always hear that from old convicts. When you a jit, you know, you always got like these old heads, and I think maybe that's where they find their purpose at. It's like lacing up the young jits, and that's real. You know what I mean? Especially even in a ministry standpoint, you got a lot of mature brothers in Christ who will take these young jits under their wings when they first come to prison and explain to them how to do time and mentor them through their bid, and that's dope. You know, so for me, I guess I really didn't have that. My first bid, because I was in jit camp, we're all the same age. But towards the end of my first bid, I had that whenever I got sent back from work release, and I told you I went to life with them. And not really so much, somewhat the second bid. Yeah, I did have that second bid because it's all adult camp, so yeah. But I guess I learned it then, just from experience, by watching how the older convicts, you know, operated, and I heard hearing the rules of the game from them too. So I already understood, like, this bid with time, I was gonna have to approach it different, and definitely get comfortable. So because of that, and ultimately as God began to use me formally in ministry, and as he would lead me to plant these churches and these inmate-led ministries, I was the pastor, not because I'm trying to seek some spiritual prestige or to elevate myself beyond the next man, but no, that's just like spiritually God's called upon my life, and that's how he would use me. I'm preacher, man. Leading the prayer calls in the dorm, the Bible studies in the dorm, preaching on the yard, preaching in chapel, full-time grind for the kingdom. So God's always sending people to me every day. And I used to always try to make it my business. And I was very intentional about this because I learned this through experience and from other brothers in Christ. I saw it in the New Testament. And I understood this is like the kingdom grind. Anytime anybody came to prayer call, okay, now in my mind, you're on my checklist. You're part of my schedule now. Because I see God doing something in your life. Why? Because it shows me, it bears fruit that you're searching for God. You're searching for purpose. You came to prayer call. Or maybe we had a good conversation and you were receptive, and I just feel like that's a divine assignment God given me. So I began to schedule and to write down people's names. And okay, this is where I really learned. All right, I just identified it. Yo, I went to college in prison, man. Praise be to God. They took out the Pell Grant in the state of Florida in the 90s. Well, they just brought back a federal government experiment program of the Pell Grant. And they did it in 16 states in the United States of America. And Florida was one of those states. And it started off with just picking 65 inmates. Bro, by God's miraculous favor, I was randomly chosen because I was DR free. I wasn't getting in trouble. And bro, ultimately by the favor of God, I was randomly chosen to go to this college program. So of course I accepted, and I was blessed to be able to get my associate's degree in prison. But while I was in prison in this college program, bro, listen, I barely knew how to do my multiplication tables when I went to the college program. I'm still counting on my fingers. I've always been intelligent, but I was never book smart just because I didn't apply myself. So of course I'm gonna take the opportunity to get my college degree, my AA, in general education, because ultimately I want to be a pastor. I want to be, you know, effective in the kingdom, and I not only want to be equipped, of course, with the knowledge, but I want the credentials, you know, of course, to be able to go to seminary and Bible college and all these things. So because of college and all these different assignments that we got to do, we got college professors coming into the prison from a local community college, teaching our classes. We got a computer lab we go to and do all our college work in. So I got all these boatload assignments, and I got to relearn everything. So just with the amount of assignments. After that, I'm overseeing and pastoring a ministry, you know, Karukma at Columbia, not just in the dorm, but I'm also blessed with the opportunity to be like a servant leader on the pound in the chaplain department, and just grinding on the pound. I'm known as a pillar, you know, at that prison, you know, as a pastor, as a shepherd, as a mature brother in Christ who's, you know, banging out for the King and making disciples and just evangelizing. So I got a full-time grind as it is, just when it comes to kingdom work. And on top of that, now I got all this college, you know, coursework and these essays and these homework assignments, and I got to study, I got to learn. And man, praise God, it was rough, and I had to begin to understand balance. Man, they say C's get degrees. That was our motto. That was our motto in the college program. But I began to use that as a motto really for myself. I mean, praise be to God, I think I got like a 4.0 is all A's, I think.
That's amazing.
Is that all A's?
Yeah.
I don't got a 4.0.
Can't go no higher than that.
I got a 4.0, yeah.
You in the threes though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, that's threes, all right.
I made one of them.
That's like 3 B's or something, you know, that's good.
Hey, what's poppin', soldier? Hey, listen, I'm like 10 minutes away, man. See the camera crew waiting on you, dog. Hey, listen, I'm gonna call you when I'm out front, all right? All right. You gonna see me when I pull up? All right, love. So yeah, C's get degrees.
I ain't forget about you, bro. I'm here for you. Keep your head up. Sick and tired doing time, you know you fed up. Police catch you in the crime, throw your hands up. Why they gave you all that time, don't you give up, nah. Keep your head up. Sick and tired doing time, know you fed up. Police catch you in the crime, throw your hands up. Why they gave you all that time, don't you give up, nah. They threw his life away. They ain't playing, they be serious, it's night and day. Whole family was in the courtroom when he lost his case. Mandatory sentence, that mean they go day for day.